The last call on the graveyard shift. The night shift always felt longer than it should. From midnight to 6 a.m., time didn't move normally. It stretched, warped, and dragged like something heavy being pulled across concrete. I worked alone as a night dispatcher at a small freight warehouse outside Toledo, Ohio. No customers. No visitors. Just radios, CCTV screens, and a phone that almost never rang. They told me the job was easy. "You'll mostly be bored," my supervisor said. "Nothing ever happens at night." That should have been my first warning. Nothing ever happens, until it does. The building was surrounded by empty lots, dead railroad tracks, and a tree line that swallowed light. Once the sun went down, it felt like the world ended right outside the parking lot. Around 1:17 a.m., the phone rang. That alone made my stomach tighten. We didn't get calls at night. Drivers checked in during the evening. Morning shift handled problems. I stared at the blinking line for a second too long before answering. On the other end was a man breathing heavily. Not talking. Just breathing. Slow, wet, deliberate. I asked if he needed dispatch. The breathing stopped. Then he whispered my name. Not my last name. My first. I froze. No one outside the company knew my first name, and even fewer used it. I asked who it was. He said, "You're alone tonight." That wasn't a question. It was a statement. I checked the cameras immediately. Bay doors were closed. Parking lot was empty. No movement near the guard shack. I told myself it was a prank, maybe a driver messing around. But then the man on the phone said something that drained the warmth from my chest. He described what I was wearing. Hoodie. Coffee stain. One sleeve pushed up. I didn't answer. I just listened. He said he'd worked the night shift before me. Same desk. Same hours. He said the quiet gets so loud that eventually, something answers back. I slammed the phone down, hand shaking, and told myself I was done. But the line rang again immediately. Same number. Internal extension. That's when I realized the extension he was calling from belonged to an office that had been sealed for years, after a night supervisor vanished during his shift. No body. No footage. Just an empty chair and a phone left off the hook. I stared at the hallway camera leading to that office. The feed flickered. Then it went black. The lights above me dimmed. Somewhere deep inside the warehouse, I heard a phone start ringing. Not mine. Another one. Ringing from the direction of that sealed office. I stood up slowly, every instinct screaming not to move. The ringing echoed through the building like it was coming from inside the walls. Then my phone rang again. I answered without thinking. The same voice whispered, "Your turn to walk the hall." And the line went dead. I didn't move for almost a full minute after the line went dead. The warehouse felt different, heavier, like the air itself had thickened. I checked the time. 1:26 a.m. night shift always peaks around then. That's when exhaustion blurs into imagination. Or so they say. I told myself the ringing I heard down the hallway was just a memory echoing. Then it rang again. Clear. Sharp. Coming from the sealed corridor. The phone in my office stayed silent, but the sound carried through concrete and steel. I grabbed the radio and called security, except we didn't have overnight security. Just me. Always just me. I stood, heart pounding, and watched the hallway camera flicker back on by itself. The sealed office door was visible now. The phone inside was ringing. I could see it vibrating on the desk through the dirty glass panel. That phone line wasn't even connected anymore. They'd cut it after the disappearance. I knew because I'd seen the maintenance log myself. My mouth went dry as the ringing stopped. A man appeared in the reflection of the glass. Not on the camera, in the glass. Standing behind me. I spun around. Nothing there. No footsteps. No shadow. When I turned back to the monitor, the reflection was gone. But the phone in the sealed office lifted off the hook by itself. The office phone on my desk rang immediately after. I answered because not answering felt worse. The voice sounded closer now, like he wasn't calling through a line anymore. He said, "I used to sit where you're sitting." He told me he ignored the ringing too. 3 nights. On the 4th night, he answered the hallway phone. He said once you answer it, the building learns your name. Learns your habits. Learns how long you'll freeze before running. I asked him what happened to him. He laughed quietly and said he never left the warehouse. Not really. He said the cameras still watch him walk the halls every night, just not on the feeds we're allowed to see. The hallway lights flickered on one by one, like something walking toward my office. I backed up until my chair hit the wall. My radio crackled to life with breathing that didn't belong to me. Then footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Too deliberate to be human. The phone whispered, "Your shift ends at 6. I grabbed my keys and bolted for the exit. The door wouldn't open. Badge reader flashed red. Then green. Then red again. On the camera monitor, I saw myself standing at the door, except I was still in the office. The version on the screen turned its head slowly toward the camera and smiled. The phone rang behind me. I didn't turn around. The voice said, "You don't get to leave until someone takes your place." I realized then why the job was always hiring. Why no one stayed longer than a few months. The warehouse didn't kill people. It kept them, working the night shift forever. The hallway phone rang again. Louder. Closer. I knew if I answered it, I'd vanish like the others. If I didn't, I wasn't sure I'd survive the night. I sank to the floor as footsteps stopped right outside the office door. The handle began to turn slowly, like whoever was outside knew I was listening. That's when my replacement walked in. A new hire. First night. Wide-eyed. Confused. He asked if the phone ever rings at night. I looked at him, then at the hallway door. The ringing stopped. The building went silent. And for the first time since midnight, the exit badge reader flashed solid green. I didn't say a word. I grabbed my things and walked out. As the door closed behind me, the phone rang again. I didn't look back, but I heard him answer it. And I knew I was free because I'd passed the shift on to someone else. I didn't sleep for 3 days after quitting. Every time my phone buzzed, my chest locked up. Even silence felt dangerous, like it was waiting for permission to speak. On the second night, I checked the warehouse job listing online. It was already back up. Same hours. Same pay. Same warning buried at the bottom. Must be comfortable working alone. I told myself it was over. That the building only had power if you were inside it. But on the third night at 1:17 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered without thinking. No voice. Just breathing. The same slow rhythm. Then the line clicked off. When I checked my call log, it showed the call came from an internal extension. The next morning, I drove past the warehouse. Curiosity beat fear. The parking lot was full. New faces. Fresh badges. I recognized one car though. My old supervisor's. He told me he only worked days. I watched him walk inside without looking back. The sign out front read, "Now hiring, night shift urgent." Weeks passed. Then months. The nightmares faded, but something else replaced them. Guilt. I'd escaped by handing the darkness to someone else. One night, I searched local news archives. I found stories I'd never been shown. Missing persons. Night workers. Janitors. Guards. Dispatchers. Always the same detail. Last seen during overnight shift. One article mentioned the sealed office. It said maintenance once found handwritten schedules on the walls. Names crossed out one by one. At the bottom was a note. The phones don't stop unless someone answers. I closed the laptop and sat in the dark, realizing the warehouse didn't choose victims randomly. It chooses people willing to stay. People who need the money. People who ignore the ringing. That's how it survives. Not as a place, but as a routine. A schedule. A shift that never truly ends. Somewhere, someone is always listening to a phone ring in the dark. Last week, I got an email from HR. No subject line. Just one sentence. "We noticed you never clocked out properly." Attached was my old time card. My signature. A clock-out time that reads 6 a.m. tomorrow. I deleted the email. But it came back. Every night. Now it's 1:16 a.m. The phone on my nightstand is buzzing. I haven't worked there in years, but the line is still open. I know what happens if I answer. I also know what happens if I don't. Because somewhere, the night shift is short one person. The phone stops ringing at exactly 1:17. I breathe again. For now. But I know this much is true. The night shift never ends. It just waits for you to come back. I worked the graveyard shift at a gas station off Interstate 80 in western Pennsylvania. Midnight to 6. The kind of place truckers stopped at because there was nothing else for miles. One pump flickered. The restroom never locked properly. And after 2 a.m., the highway went dead quiet. No engines, no wind, not even bugs hitting the lights. Management warned me about theft, drunks, and the occasional fight. They never warned me about the man who only paid in exact change. The first time he came in was at 2:11 a.m. He stood perfectly still at the counter, coins already laid out in a neat line before I finished ringing him up. He bought the same thing every time. Black coffee. No lid. No sugar. No cream. He never spoke unless I spoke first. When I asked if he wanted a receipt, he looked up slowly, too slowly, and said, "I don't take things back with me." His eyes looked wrong. Not glowing. Just empty. Like rooms with the lights off. After he left, I checked the cameras. The footage skipped the moment he entered. 1 second the store was empty. The next, he was already at the counter. No door opening. No motion alert. I told myself it was a glitch. Old system. Cheap wiring. That's what night shifts teach you, how to lie to yourself convincingly. He came back the next night. Same time. Same coins. Same smell. Burnt coffee and something metallic underneath. When I counted the change, my hands started shaking. The coins were old. Really old. Some dated back decades. One wasn't even legal currency anymore. When I looked up to question it, he was already walking out. I locked the door at 2:30, like policy said. That's when the knocking started. Not on the glass, but on the counter. I turned around. He was inside the store again, standing where I'd just been looking. He tilted his head and said, "You forgot my change." I told him the register showed exact payment. He smiled. Not wide. Not angry. Just certain. He said, "There's always change on the night shift." The lights flickered. The coffee machine began brewing by itself. Outside, the pumps clicked on one by one, though no cars were there. I realized then, I hadn't seen him arrive once. Ever. The radio crackled with static. Through it, I heard my own voice answering a question I hadn't asked yet. I backed toward the office, heart hammering, and noticed something chilling on the camera monitor. The man wasn't casting a reflection in the glass doors. He stepped closer and whispered, "I worked here too. Long before you." That's when I noticed his uniform. Same logo. Same name tag. Only the name was scratched out completely. The door chime rang as if someone had entered, but no one was there. And then he asked me the question every night worker dreads. "Are you closing alone?" I told him yes. I don't know why. Lying felt dangerous. He nodded like he'd expected that answer and glanced toward the locked doors. The open sign flickered even though I'd switched it off. He said most people panic when they're alone, but some learn to listen. Then he asked what time it was. I checked the register. 2:11 a.m. The exact minute he always arrived. He smiled again and said, "That's when it reopens." The bell above the door rang softly, though the doors never moved. The air turned cold, like the coolers had been opened all at once. My breath fogged in front of me. I asked him how he got inside. He said the store doesn't lock the way I think it does. It locks by habit, by routine, by people believing the rules still apply at night. He reached out and touched the counter. Frost spread from his fingers across the laminate. The cameras went dark one by one, except for a single feed I'd never seen before. It showed the same station, but older. Different pumps. Different signs. Same counter. Same angle. And behind it stood him, younger, wearing a clean uniform, ringing up a customer who looked exactly like me. My ears rang as the radio hissed to life. Dispatch chatter from decades ago spilled out. Codes that weren't used anymore. Voices that sounded warped and stretched. He said night workers leave pieces of themselves behind. That's how the place stays open. That's what the change is for. I noticed my reflection in the cooler door looked wrong. Thinner. Paler. Like I'd been working there longer than I remembered. The man slid a coin across the counter. It was warm. He said it was my change. I didn't take it. The register drawer popped open anyway. Inside the drawer were dozens of identical coins. Same age, same wear. All from different years. He said every night shift ends the same way. Someone clocks out, someone stays. The ones who stay become part of the place. He gestured toward the back hallway. I smelled burnt coffee again. The bathroom lights turned on by themselves. The mirror inside reflected someone standing just behind me. I spun around. Nothing. But on the monitor, I could see myself walking toward the restroom, even though I hadn't moved. Panic finally hit. I grabbed my phone. No signal. Just the time blinking 2:11 a.m. He leaned in close and whispered, "You already accepted the shift." I told him I was quitting. He shook his head slowly. Said quitting only works before the third visit. This was his fourth time seeing me. I realized then, I didn't remember my first night clearly at all. The front doors unlocked with a loud click. Headlights swept across the windows. A car pulled in. A customer. Real. Alive. The man straightened up and stepped back, fading slightly, like smoke in bright light. He said, "If you want to leave, let them pay." The bell rang as the customer walked in. Young. Tired. Night shift energy. He set a coffee on the counter and pulled out loose change. I looked at the man. He nodded. I rang it up and watched the customer count coins, exact change. My chest tightened as the man smiled. The register chimed. The lights stabilized. The cold vanished. The man was gone. Just like that. The customer thanked me and asked if I'd worked here long. I opened my mouth to answer, and realized I couldn't remember where I worked before this. The clock on the wall ticked forward. 2:12 a.m. For the first time all night. I was still breathing. Still here. But I knew something had shifted. The coins in the drawer felt heavier. And somewhere deep in the store, a coffee machine started brewing. By 4 a.m., the station felt normal again. That was the worst part. Normality at night is a lie your brain tells to survive. The radio played softly. The pump stayed quiet. Customers came and went without incident. But every time the register opened, I felt lighter, like something small was being taken without permission. I checked the cameras obsessively. No glitches. No missing frames. Still, the reflection in the glass felt half a second behind me. Around 4:47, a trucker came in for fuel and cigarettes. He paid with a card. The receipt printed, but the register opened anyway. A single old coin appeared inside. I hadn't seen him drop it. At 5:12 a.m., the bathroom mirror finally showed what I'd been avoiding. My uniform logo looked faded, older than it should have been. The name tag was scuffed, like something had tried to erase it. I scrubbed at it until my fingers hurt. It didn't change. I didn't remember clocking in, but my shift felt like it had already been going on for years. When dawn crept in through the windows, relief should have followed. It didn't. The sky turned grey, but the light stayed harsh and white. Morning didn't belong here. At 5:59, the register chimed. The door opened. A new cashier stepped in, my replacement. Fresh uniform. Same tired eyes I'd had. She smiled and asked if it had been a quiet night. I tried to warn her. The words wouldn't come out right. All I managed was, "Watch the change." She laughed, thinking I was joking. I felt something settle deep in my chest, like a door locking. The clock hit 6 a.m. She logged in. The register accepted her ID immediately. When I tried to clock out, the screen flashed error. She didn't notice. She was busy ringing up a customer. He paid in exact change. The coins slid across the counter by themselves, lining up perfectly. I looked up. The man was back, standing by the coolers, watching. Whole again. Solid. Wearing my name tag. He met my eyes and nodded, just once. Understanding passed between us. He hadn't been haunting the station. He'd been waiting for someone to finish the shift properly. I felt the station settle, like a breath released. The radio switched to static, then to music I didn't recognize. The doors unlocked fully. Sunlight touched the floor for the first time all night. The man faded into reflection. Into glass. Into routine. I walked outside without thinking. The air felt wrong, too loud, too fast. Cars rushed by like they belonged to another world. I checked my phone. No missed calls. No history. Just the time. 2:11 a.m. The date was wrong. Years behind. I realized the truth then. I hadn't escaped. I'd been released. The station didn't keep people forever, only until the change was paid. Somewhere, someone else was starting their night shift. Somewhere, a coffee machine was brewing by itself. If you ever stop at a gas station after midnight and the cashier warns you about the change, listen, because the night shift always collects, and it always prefers exact payment. If this story made you uncomfortable, good, because the next one is worse. Subscribe now. The night shift is just getting started. Comment now.